Alrighty, so the energies have been very, very tricky. Okay, so we do have, at the time of my recording this, and I don't know if I'm going to post it on the day I record or the day after, but on the day that I'm recording this, Uranus has literally just gone direct a few hours ago. Now, interestingly, where I am in the world, Uranus stationed to go direct on Tuesday, February the 3rd at 3:33 p.m., right? And then when a planet stations to go direct, it's kind of where you could say the retrograde energy ceases and it recalibrates to actually move out, like move directly forward. That's how we kind of speak about it. But technically, a planet isn't going backwards and forward. But for the sake of, you know, making sense of this movement, let's just say that it does. So when it's retrograding, it's retrograding. When it stations to go direct, it kind of stops its retrograde direction. And then when it actually goes direct, it starts the forward movement again. Okay, so yeah, on Tuesday, February the 3rd, Uranus quit its retrograde phase at 3:33 p.m. where I am. And on Wednesday, February the 4th, it went direct, I should say. It's stationed to go direct on Tuesday at 3:33 p.m. where I am. And then it went direct 24 hours later at 3:33 also. Okay, that's not a small message. I know not everyone is where I am in the world. We're not all in the same time zone. It's interesting how I came to recognize this also. I was directly guided to map all of this, funnily enough, at 33 minutes past midnight. And I had no idea of I had no idea at the time that was the time that we were dealing with the Uranus stationing and going direct on the 2 days. So 33, in case you're not aware, is a number of mastery. It's a degree of well, it's not a degree because there are no 33 degrees in astrology, although there are in regular degree structures. But 33 is a master number, let's put it that way. It's a master number that has to do with embodying your self-mastery. It is an ascended mastery code. And when we're talking about ascended mastery, I think about the I am. The A and the M for me does speak of ascended mastery, okay? Take that as it resonates. It might not be the case for you, that's fine, okay? So your I am is about reaching your ascended mastery codes. And when I say your ascended mastery codes, I know there's a lot of, popular conversation around ascended masters in the spiritual community. When I speak about ascended mastery, I'm not speaking about ascended masters. The way I see it, and again, you don't have to agree with me, the way I see it is that we all have codes of ascended mastery. We all have codes where we elevate into a place of where we're supposed to be ascended in our own mastery in terms of our own soul contract. So ascended mastery for one being is not going to look the same for another being because it's dependent upon your own soul's evolutionary journey and the details of your own contract. Okay, so the energy right now, I've been talking a lot about master codes, whether you've been caught up with me over on Solarah Rises, where I talked about the full moon in Leo, what that meant, or you've been keeping up with me on the community board where I've been posting energy reports, written reports, talking about the energies of now, or even yesterday's video. Okay, so there's a lot of master codes returning to the planet right now. And when I say master codes, I'm talking about the original code from which everything else either grew or was replicated. Okay, so you have your master code, or how it was channeled to me, your master logos codes, your master, the codes that brought you into existence. Some of them are the codes that spoke you into existence, meaning what it is that you were determined to be through your source code. And when I say what you were determined to be, this is like an umbrella energy. It doesn't, everything else that you have been cross-incarnationally since that original master logos code. It's an extension of that. Okay, so your master logos code is like your, I almost want to say it's like your source code settings, your original settings, right? So, you know, like how when something defaults technologically and you have to wipe it and put it back into its factories, it's like your factory settings, right? We're not trying to wipe ourselves out and put ourselves into factory settings, but I think there's also a way you can use factory setting codes to reset while retaining the information you need to, okay? So in certain instances, that's kind of what we're going through, right? When you start to stream back onto the earth and into your energy field, your true mastery codes, it starts to clear out the scripts and the false replications that have occurred in your system that go against your original master code, while retaining what it is that adheres to your true master code. Because a lot of what it is that we've been through in the false matrix, the codings, the scripts that have become, a part of our energy field that we've embodied, and we've even created whole lives and timelines off of these scripts. A lot of those things, if they don't align with your true master codes, they were never yours to begin with. Okay, so as we reaccept our true master codes, it starts to clear out and bring to the surface the things that aren't in alignment with it, in alliance with it. And this process is not only happening for us on an individual level, meaning that those codes are streaming in as we are able to let go of the false scripts, the false matrix contracts, the programming, the patterning, the emotional densities that allow those things to stick. As we are able to let go of those things, our master codes are able to rewrite us back into the truth of who we are. It is a process. We're not all on the same journey. We're not on the same path. We don't all experience time the same way, or at least we're not supposed to. So it's not something that's really comparative. It's personal, as your soul's evolutionary journey should be. Now, what is happening for us on an individual level is also happening for the earth. So a lot of the original master codes are coming in, and that's what is helping to not only reset the true grids of the earth, but push out the things that don't align with the earth's master codes. So I say that because that 33 number, it's been coming through a lot. And for those of you who, Yeshua was said to have been crucified at 33, I don't believe that personally. You can feel free to believe what it is you want to believe, but I don't. I believe that number was used very specifically as a code. You have 33 vertebrae in your spine. Okay, so when your Kundalini energy surges, it goes through those 33 vertebrae. When you are channeling in source code from above or from below, your spine, your energy column, your spine is part of your energy column. It's part of the bridge between heaven and earth. I think I mentioned very loosely yesterday about how the heart chakra is connected to the equatorial line of the earth. The higher heart is connected to the Tropic of Cancer line on the earth. The lower heart is connected to the Tropic of Capricorn line on the earth. Now, your spinal column, your energy column that includes your spine, is connected to the prime meridian, that latitudinal line called the prime meridian that sets time. Okay? So when we have literally said that we are the earth and the earth is us, that's why. That's how interconnected we are to the structures of the earth and how she works. Okay, so I'm here shuffling. For those of you who are tuning in with me for the first time, my name is Solarah. I'm here to do a reading. I have a lot of downloads. I have downloads very specifically on some information that's been coming through about Neptune and Aries. But because I did a video on downloads yesterday, and it was quite complex and weighty topic, I decided just to go into the cards today and see what's up with the energy and what comes through. So right now I'm shuffling the tarot. I am going into the Modern Witch Tarot deck. by Lisa Sterl. I'm going to, ooh, something just flew out, but I'm not taking it because I'm going to do a 4-card spread. We have the 5 of Swords and the 3 of Swords came out in reverse, and the World at the bottom of the deck. The 5 of Swords and the 3 of Swords came out in reverse with the World at the bottom of the deck. This is really interesting energy. The World is the final card in the major arcana story. The World is the card of Saturn. It's also fixed cross energy. It has to do with Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus. Okay, so fixed cross energy. We have a lot of fixed cross energy happening in the collective energy right now. Okay, so we're just coming out of the full moon in Leo. Remember, I just said the fixed cross are connected to the signs and the transits that are that connect us to 4 zodiac signs: Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. And whenever we're breaking into a new cycle, or we're coming to the end of a loop, when it comes to the planetary astrology, we will often be coming to the intersection of those 4 signs, which is why in the tarot, the Wheel of Fortune, which is the sign that dictates whether you go into a new cycle or you go back around a loop, that's the Wheel of Fortune. And the World card, the Wheel of Fortune is a number 10 card. Okay, that's the card of this year. We're in a number 10 year. 2026 is a 10 year. So the tarot card is the Wheel of Fortune, the Sun, and the Magician, right? So the second card that deals with the fixed cross is the World, which is the closing out of the second half of the major arcana. So the Wheel of Fortune kind of closes out or is a midpoint for the major arcana. And then what closes out the major arcana sequence altogether is the World. And the World is, again, fixed cross energy. Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus. Now, for those of you who have read the book of Revelations, it also talks about very specifically the 4 emblems that symbolize these fixed signs being at the throne of God, right? It speaks about the fixed cross energies that appear in the Wheel of Fortune and the World in the book of Revelations when speaking on the throne of God. It might also mention it in Isaiah, because a lot of what happens, a lot of the prophecies that came through the person they called Jesus, Yeshua, those prophecies came through powerfully through the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament. And then a lot of the prophecy was further realized, or the new prophecy that was an extension of that, an extension of Yeshua having been on earth, came through the book of Revelation. So the World card was at the bottom just now, and the 3 of Swords and the 5 of Swords came out in reverse. I want to also preface this by saying that I did a card pull first thing this morning, and the World card came out again. The World card came out at the bottom. It was a different card. It was more a personal pull. A different card came out, and it was to do very much with actually the Uranus energies of now. It's interesting because the card that came out was directly connected to the degree of Taurus that Uranus is in. So it was showing me that something was ending in that area, okay? But right now, because I'm doing a collective read, let's talk about the World, because it's come out twice. It came out in my personal draw. It's come out now in the collective picture. It wanted to make itself known. So the World speaks of not just the close of a cycle, not just the ending of a pattern, not just the destruction of a loop. The World speaks of the collapsing of many, many loops and cycles and patterns that have created a whole fabric of existence, you could say, that has become eras. So it's not about like a cycle you've lived through in this lifetime, a cycle you've lived through for a few years. It's about the cycles and the loops you kept on repeating for millennia, for centuries, cross-incarnationally, or the cycles and the loops that have been repeated through bloodlines generationally, or have been repeated on the earth generationally and intergenerationally. So it's the looping structures and the cycles that have been so embedded in our existence that they have created entire, not just timelines, but like archives of timelines that have become eras. That's what the world is. The world is like the closing of the multitude of loops and timelines that have created an era. So with that in mind, that's at the bottom of the deck. And what theme is closing out? Well, we have the Three of Swords, we have it in reverse, and we have the Five of Swords. Okay, so the Three of Swords and the Five of Swords, when they're in reverse, you can read these in a different way, but what came through to me, you can read these in a myriad of ways, I should say, but what came through to me very specifically as I saw it was, it's the Three of Swords is Libran energy. It has to do with the ways that we begin to betray our own hearts through using our own minds against ourselves, or how we allow other people to do that to us too. Because the truth of the matter is, a lot of the reasons why our hearts get broken is not because we haven't been shown something, it's because we've been shown something and we've chosen not to believe it. We've chosen not to believe it for a myriad of reasons, and oftentimes the reasons we choose not to believe it, it's an unconscious thing until we begin to unearth the patterning around our own denial. And we were taught to do that through false matrix programming. We didn't just wake up deciding to betray ourselves. We were programmed over time into learning that self-betrayal was not only the right thing to do, it was the moral thing to do. We were programmed against ourselves oftentimes in the false matrix through false morality programming. And a lot of false morality programming, whether you ascribe to religion or not, is rooted in Abrahamic templates. So when I see the Three of Swords, I know in conventional tarot readings, they talk about it as being heartbreak and third-party energy, but at the root of those stories are the manifestation of something that's deeper. So at the root of the Three of Swords is the ways we learn how to break our own hearts through denial of our own intuition and denial of what it is our hearts show us, often by overwriting it with the programming of our mind. That's the Three of Swords. The whole sword suit has to do with the mental battles that ensue internally and externally to get us to give away our power. For those of you who've been, with me for a moment, you might remember back in 2023, my first year on this channel, 2023, in August of 2023, I did a reading all about how the false matrix programs you against yourself and how the sword suit shows you the order of which that occurs. If I remember, I will post that video in the description box below because it's still a video that's very pertinent. The tarot actually shows you how energy moves and grows and matures into substance. That's what the tarot actually shows you. If you want to use the tarot as a code for self-mastery, then you need to understand the cards on that level. Most of what you see on the internet when it comes to tarot has to do with readings that are based upon divination and, I want to say, like pop culture definitions that don't have to do with the true self-mastery codes that show you how the tarot is a genius for this. It literally will show you through how energy flows from the above to the below. It links you to the Kabbalah, it links you to the Bible, it links you to the planets, it links you to astrology, the Decan or Decan systems, however you want to see it, the elemental systems, how they all work together. That information is all in the tarot. So a lot of the time, these more surface level definitions are used for the purpose of entertainment and divination. But the truth of the matter is, we're not supposed to technically give ourselves over to divination. And what do I mean by that? Why is that? It's not because it's like what they say in Christianity, it's demonic and all that other shit. This isn't even a fear-based thing. This is a function, how your energy system is supposed to function when it's in source code. What divination does is it tells you a story based upon a snapshot of energy, right? But the truth of the matter is that energy is constantly changing from millisecond to millisecond, depending on the decisions that you make internally. So therefore, when you get a reading from someone and it's based upon divination codes as opposed to self-mastery and sovereignty codes, those divination stories become dangerous because they can become a false script. Even when people give you information that's rooted in self-mastery and sovereignty codes, if you choose to become more dependent on what they say than your own internal intuition, you are accepting a false script that somebody else is giving you. That becomes dangerous on your journey, because whenever we adhere to scripts that don't align with our true divine blueprints and how they're supposed to move through us, we open ourselves up for influence of things in our systems that aren't supposed to be there. Yeah, so even when you're working with a person, with someone like me or anyone else who does the kind of work where they're working with the cards or any other, system of quote unquote divination to give you codes of self-mastery to help you come into alignment with your truth. If you are not rooted in yourself, first and foremost, and using that as further confirmation and guidance as opposed to as a Bible, then you're doing the same thing. And I'm going to start talking about this more because it's important, and I've seen it showing up more and more in people, right? Like tarot, all of these things are designed to help you come into deeper relationship with trusting yourself, not trusting what somebody else says to you about yourself, but affirming what it is they've said about you only if it lines up with the truth of your own soul, and unlocking deeper information within your own soul because they've given you a key. They don't give you your map. Your map lives within you. They can give you keys based upon the information, the codes, the activations they have. But the job to get to our own map is a deeply personal journey that can only happen in relationship to our own souls and source. Okay, that's been a lot of talking, considering, there goes the world card again, considering I haven't pulled any cards yet. Alrighty, let's keep shuffling. Okay, stop. Okay. At the bottom, we have the Two of Cups. This is Cancerian energy. This is the 0 to 9 or 10 degrees of Cancer. Okay, so this is when the sun, this is a June solstice energy, is the Ace and the Two of Cups. Okay, so this is when we the gates begin to open for Sirius codes to enter. The Sirius law codes begin to enter through the June solstice onto the earth. It's very much in alignment with the Tropic of Cancer. You could also say your higher heart begins to be activated also through that portal. Okay, so the Two of Cups, again, in regular tarot, I know they talk about this card being, two people coming together in like-mindedness. And yes, that can be the effect. Like-mindedness, like-heartedness. Yes, that can definitely be the effect of the Two of Cups, right? But the root energy of the Two of Cups is before you can come into alignment with another being and have this mutual flow of energy and respect that is rooted in true emotional resonance, as opposed to like, codependency, and all manner of like relational imbalances that all of us have been living through, because the false matrix taught us that those were real, relationship goals, or those were normal ways to relate to others, which they're not in source code, at least. The Two of Cups speaks of how you come back into emotional resonance with self. It's how you come back into stability within your own nervous system, because your nervous system is what allows for you to hold the fullness of your true emotional coding. It also speaks about your ability to come back into true emotional resonance. Requires that your nervous system is in regulation, because you're in a deep level of self-trust and you are in union with your own soul and the intuitive guidance that your own soul speaks to you on an individual level for your soul's blueprint or energy signature. That's a Two of Cups. When you come back into true alignment, emotional resonance, you come home to self, you trust self. And from that place, you begin to make decisions and move on your journey in that place of trusting yourself, your soul, and what your soul speaks to you above any other. Now, Cancer, as you know, it connects us to biological mother, right? It connects us to biological mother foundations. And that's because when you're dealing with Cancer, you're dealing with returning to the mother code that set your original foundation. That's why I think I said it in a video yesterday, maybe my full moon in Leo. I say master codes, but I'm really talking about mater. I'm talking about mother codes. Your master codes are your mother codes. Everything is built off of mother energy, a motherboard, a matrix, matter, material. These are all derivatives of the Latin root word mater, M-A-T-E-R, mother, material, matter, matrix, motherboard. All of these things speak about how energy is formed, how it grows, how cycles are laid out, and how things begin in order to go out and be circulated. The masculine energy circulates from the mother energy, the motherboard. Okay? So the Two of Cups is where you come back into alignment with your foundational truth, or you come back into a place where you reset your foundations in alignment with who you actually are, as opposed to what you were programmed out of. So the false matrix used mothers very specifically because all foundations are laid through mother energy, including the mother-child relationship. Our foundations are formed through our mother, which is why we grow in her womb. The masculine, the masculine energy, the man, the father, gives the information for the egg to begin to circulate what it already is holding. And then the mother begins to write that code in you, in utero, through her own coding that's already in her system, and through how that coding is affected by her external reality. In science, you call it epigenetics, right? You have your genetics, which is your biological code, but that biological code responds to your external experiences. It responds to whether you get enough sleep, whether you get enough hydration, whether you're living in instability. It responds to how you are functioning in relationships, how you're functioning at work. It's responding to your stress levels. That's the science of epigenetics, how your biology, your genetics are affected by the external factors that are part of your material existence. So in utero, you are dividing through the mother code, right? And the way that your cells divide is down to how your mother is interfacing with that process through her own body, but also through her experience. So if she's having a shitty pregnancy, if she's in fear in her pregnancy, if she's unstable, if other people are causing problems, etc., that has a direct effect on how, in utero, the nervous system of the baby begins to form, the foundation, the emotional foundation. And your nervous system is what allows for you to handle yourself, to trust yourself, but also to handle yourself and how you interface with the world. So the Two of Cups is how you return to what it is you need to be stable, rooted, grounded, established in self, so that who you are, your source code, is allowed to come into your field without the obstruction of external interferences, because your nervous system is shot. When your nervous system is shot, when you constantly are in survival, when you're in fight or flight, it makes you easy to influence and control, which is why in the false matrix, they do that. They programmed us through trauma, and you can attest through this awakening, all of the attacks that have come forth have been geared to fuck with your nervous system, so you then make decisions that are rooted in fear or survival, because that's the coding that is the most familiar. It's what we tend to revert to, even unconsciously, when under siege. So our systems have been under siege all this time, and the Two of Cups is when you come out of being under siege, because your own internal union with the truth of who you are outweighs everything and anything that anyone else tries to throw at you. And this internal calibration of like returning home to your source code, specifically on a nervous system and emotional level, is what begins to shift your timelines. It's what begins to shift your timeline. So oftentimes, and I've spoken about this in videos before too, people will be like, well, when will the attacks end? And I will often say to you, it's not about the attacks ending, because at a certain point they'll end because your frequency will be too high to sustain them. So we spend a lot of time looking at what other people are doing. And it's not that it's not important and we're not supposed to protect ourselves and all of that stuff. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that when we start to put our focus on becoming more rooted in self and trusting self and building our nervous systems in terms of how we trust our own source code, that's when timelines begin to shift. So I can tell you a practice that I've begun, right? So a lot of the time in the false matrix, even in, the spiritual groups, spiritual grouping, spiritual groupthink, spiritual, even those of us who are more spiritually minded, even if you're not part of a group, a lot of the time we have been programmed, even in that, to revert to constantly looking at what others are doing to determine how we're doing. And again, we do it very unconsciously. And it comes forth in so many of our habits. So like, for one thing, a lot of the time when I used to wake up first thing in the morning and I would check my email. I check my email. I check to see if somebody had messaged me in some kind of way, or I'd go into my social media and see what people are talking about, the accounts that I follow, to keep on top of like what happened overnight. You know, was there a solar flare and all of that stuff? And listen, there's nothing wrong with keeping on top of whatever information you think it is important for your journey, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But we have been programmed to be very reliant upon external cues to tell us how we're doing, right? And a conscious practice I'm beginning to really embody in my life more is when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is check in with my soul. Soul, what's going on here? What is going on? What's the news? What's the information? What's the first thing I need to do today? Because oftentimes we've been programmed into what it is we're supposed to do, not based upon soul guidance. And it becomes so embedded in our day-to-day routines that we don't even think about it. We wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, I grab my phone, I make a cup of coffee, I go and work out. I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm saying in general, you know, I go work out, I go and make breakfast, I go and do this. But our souls are what are supposed to be driving us, not other timetables, not even routines and schedules, if they're not in alignment with our soul map. So before I look to external information to tell me how it is I'm supposed to be, and you know, again, it's amazing how much we've really depended upon external information to kind of steer us. You wake up in the morning and you read something you like and you feel good. You read something you don't like, you feel bad. We're not supposed to give our power away in that way. We're supposed to arise in the day, and the resonance that we are set to should have nothing to do with what is outside of us. And when we find ourselves drifting into resonances that are dictated by external energies and situations and scenarios, that's when we need to get away and go into hermit mode. And I'm not talking about like running away from people forever. I'm talking about going within, no matter where you are, and asking your soul, this feeling I'm feeling, this thought I'm thinking, this mood that has suddenly come upon me after hearing this, seeing this, being in the energy of this, is it mine? Is it true to my map? Is it something I'm supposed to carry? Is it something I'm supposed to, give my emotional energy to, give my thoughts to? Is it mine? Is it my script? Is it my blueprint? And when we check in with our souls more, and we trust the guidance of our souls and we follow it, we trust it and we follow it, this is where we have the Two of Cups establishing. Not between two people, but between those polar aspects of self that, if we're not careful, can be in constant war and opposition, and we don't even realize that's the case. And the case in point of this is your ego versus your soul. Your ego, I did a write-up on this a few weeks ago, because a lot of your mastery codes have to do with the relationship with ego versus soul. Your ego is a part of you that is connected to your physical experience. So when you decide to incarnate into the physical realms and you have a physical body, your ego is the body that is designed to protect you in the physical realms, very specifically. And it is connected to your I am also. So your ego is more connected. It's not even just about the physical realms. It's more connected to your lower chakra system, your what we call your lower chakra system, your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root. Because as a high frequency being, when you choose to come into material form, you are coming into a lower dimension. And when you come into a lower dimension, you need to protect your sovereignty and your divinity, and your ego is supposed to protect you. Your ego is what shows you what you're supposed to be afraid, what you're supposed to fear, when you're supposed to be interfacing with those lower frequency emotions. They exist for a reason. They exist to help guide you through the lower realms. But your ego, when it's out of check, it stays. You stay in your ego. You stay in the lower chakras. You stay in the lower realms. You stay in fear-based thinking and programming, shame-based thinking and programming, guilt-based thinking and programming, the trauma trifecta, fear, guilt, and shame. They're all egoic, right? Your ability to rise into the truth of who you are and live by your soul requires for you to come back into communion with how your ego is supposed to protect the choices of your soul map as you walk on the earth, as opposed to block you. Your ego is very connected to also your solar masculine energy, or you can say the divine father aspect. Your soul is connected more to the divine mother, the creatrix principle, how you create, how you produce, how you nurture what you're creating and what you're producing, how you're inspired to create and produce. That's all feminine energy. The ego is there to help guide you in how you take that out. So you know when to go, when to stop, when to keep going, when to retreat. That's supposed to be the nature of the ego, not to keep you trapped in fear, so that you go when you're not supposed to go, you stop when you're not supposed to stop. Moving like that is also indicative of an unrooted nervous system. So it all interconnects. Okay, I haven't even turned the cards over. Alrighty, overarching theme, we have the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords is the card that comes at the end of the sword suit. So after the 10 of Swords, we have the Page of Swords. Page energy can be about messaging. Page energy can also be to do with childhood stuff. But page energy, when you're dealing with energy cycles, is when you've moved through the cycle of the suit, and when you've accumulated a new layer of information from that cycle. So Ace and Page energy is similar, but the Ace of Swords, for example, speaks of something new coming in. The Page of Swords often speaks of the return of something old with more experience from the sword suits that allows you to revisit that thing in a different way. Right? So it's revisiting something you've already been through, but now with added wisdom, having been through another cycle through the suits. And I said to you earlier, the sword suit has to do with the way your mental body works with the mental planes. So how you interface not only with the mental planes, but with other people's mental bodies, their thoughts, their words, how words, thoughts, mental energy is used to either empower or disempower you. Page of Swords also speaks of leveling up in your knowledge. And you level up in your knowledge as you build upon what you already know oftentimes. So with this coming out in the overarching theme, there's a few things that are coming through. And I already spoke about this, I think, in the energy report I wrote yesterday, and I've spoken about it in recent videos. I think the one I posted here, as well as, again, on Solarah Rises. There is a lot of mental reprogramming, or I should say reprogramming of mental circuitry that is occurring right now on the earth and within us if we want to allow ourselves to be recircuited. And this is also to do with the Aquarian energy, because Aquarius is how we begin to deal with networking. And it's not only social networking and how we network with other people, it's how we first and foremost, how the networks work within our own system. And Aquarius has to do with both the mental and the emotional bodies, and very specifically how mental networking connects with emotional circuitry. So how our neural pathways, our habits of thinking, and how our brain has been programmed to work, and how that connects with our emotional circuitry, how the emotions that we are instantly taken into because of thoughts, for example. So we're all wired differently based upon biology, but also based upon experiences and based upon our soul experiences. So if I say my triggers will not be your triggers. So if somebody says something that's my trigger, it can take me to a place within my emotional circuitry where it drags me down. But if I say that same thing to another person, it does nothing to them. It does nothing to their emotional circuitry because it's not their fucking trigger. Right? So we have been programmed into, our emotional circuitry has been programmed in accordance with things that we call triggers. And the triggers are oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes connected to false scripts. The false scripts that were designed to keep us in lower emotional resonances or in fear. And so what's happening right now, through this powerful Uranian energy also, Uranus going direct, and the solar masculine codes that have been entering the planet, solar masculine master codes, as well as our personal master codes, because we're really dealing with mastery this year, especially mastery of the energy, our own energy systems in terms of how we create materially. That's a huge theme for 2026. It's a Capricorn year. A lot of what's coming through right now in terms of the coding is designed to help us reprogram, recondition the mental, the neural pathways and the corresponding emotional circuitry. Aquarius is the water bearer. It deals with the intersection of the mental and the emotional planes when it comes to how they network and work together, in how things are materialized and created and go out into the world. More importantly, how timelines become, which is why Aquarius is also the wave. How the wave becomes the particle, you could say, if you're dealing with quantum physics, if you believe it. Because I know there's a lot of I think last year there was a lot of discourse in the quantum physics community about, debunking even that wave to particle discussion also. So, Page of Swords. This is to do with that information. This is also to do with a deeper level of self-study. The Page of Swords invites us to study, to take our studiousness to a higher level, to be able to study also how your mental circuitry works. That's the Page of Swords. Page of Swords, again, page energy has to do with childhood, how your childhood programming, the childhood programming that scripted you against yourself. There are things that want to come through to undo that also. The Page of Swords can also have to do with external interference that wants to come in and rewrite you. The Page of Swords can have to do with surveillance, spying. All of these things are a design to intimidate and to control. So these are areas that the Page of Swords deals with also. In the challenge position, we have the Seven of Wands. The Seven of Wands is Leo energy. It's Leo energy. It's the 20 to 29 degrees of Leo, the final decan of Leo. So like the third week of August. Seven of Wands. Seven of Wands in the challenge position is when it can go both ways. You're always, when you're dealing with reverse, you're always dealing with the expression of the polarity that is pulling things out of harmony. So what do I mean by that? The Seven of Wands in its upright position, when it's not in a challenge position, the Seven of Wands speaks of protecting your solar truth, your solar codes, protecting your heart, protecting your soul, protecting how your heart leads you, in allegiance to your own soul. The Seven of Wands also speaks about protecting those solar codes that come through the Sirius gateway, Two of Cups. And those solar codes come through every year to update you deeper into your solar coded truth in all ways, including your access, your wealth codes, your visibility, all of those things, and how you're supposed to show up in your purpose on the earth. Those solar codes come in every year through the Sirius gateway and then through your own solar return to keep you up to solar code on the earth, or it's supposed to. So when you receive the solar codes through the Six of Wands, the Seven of Wands is then how you begin to protect it. But in the challenge or the reverse position, the Seven of Wands can speak to where there's an imbalance in how you're protecting, either by overprotecting or underprotecting, or not using the right strategy for what it is you need at that time. We become very comfortable with certain forms of even our protection, and we don't like to change it up. But we need to be changing it up as we evolve. As you become more rooted in your source codes and your truth, there's less need for the continual active protection rituals that you might have been doing when you were first waking up, because your system shouldn't be under as much threat as it was back then. It doesn't mean that you don't protect yourself. You still protect yourself. But it means that the quality of your protection should be changing with your evolution. So the Seven of Wands is here to ask you where you need to take a look at that. And for everyone, it's going to be different. There are going to be areas where you're not protecting yourself enough. And oftentimes the areas where you're not protecting yourself enough, it's because you don't realize who you are or your value, or that you have something to protect. This Page of Swords wants to bring in more information to help you also realize what it is you have to protect, your value. Help you to remember that too. The Seven of Wands is also when we move into paranoia and we start to be overly protective based upon past experiences and the fear that they're going to repeat. And where we have to strike the balance there too. Because in our efforts to protect ourselves from what happened in the past, we can block ourselves from what it is that has come in or wants to come in too. What you need to be paying attention to, the Emperor. I spoke about these solar masculine codes, but this is also foundation. The Emperor is the number 4. It's about the foundation that wants to be set. What's the foundation you're setting? So the Emperor is a number 4 card that has to do with the foundation and the structures that allow for your true creative flow to be established, but also to be protected and to be directed, right? So what kind of foundation are you setting? The foundations that you're setting right now, are they based upon a dysregulated nervous system? Are they based upon thoughts that aligned with scripts that have nothing to do with you and your power and your source code? Are your foundations that are forming still being informed by fear, unnatural fear, or fear that is rooted in things that occurred in the past that it's time to let go? What is the foundational energy you're building around your creativity, around your expression, around your soul and your soul's truth and expression? What is the foundational, what are you building foundationally? Because every cycle has to be, every cycle, every pattern, every timeline has to be true to the foundation that is set. It cannot go against the foundational energy. It cannot go against the motherboard, what has been established first. So what you're establishing, what we're establishing right now, we're being given the guidance to become more aware of how we're building. And not because you're supposed to do things perfectly. We're still in this to learn and to grow and to become based upon our soul's evolution, not out of fear of doing something right or doing something wrong. That's fucking religious programming. Okay? We're here to learn how to trust our souls above the false matrix, intimidation tactics, etc. That's what we're here to do. And we're here to build a foundation based upon trust, nervous system regulation, deep union with self, deep remembrance of self and our value. That's what we're here to build from, so that our timelines and our cycles have to stay true to that new foundation. Guidance, 9 of Swords. Well, I'm glad this came into the guidance position. I wouldn't have wanted it in anywhere but the guidance or the challenge. The 9 of Swords as guidance. The 9 of Swords as guidance admonishes us to pay attention to our minds and to pay attention to the thoughts we allow to circulate within our own internal scripting. What are we constantly thinking on? Are we thinking on higher thoughts? Are we thinking on past experiences that have been bad? Are we devoting our minds to fear-based templates, fear-based scripts, intimidation scripts that are wanting to invade our mental bodies to get us to produce discordant timelines? Where are we devoting our minds? And are we able to recognize when our minds are going into places, down roads that they have no business being, that aren't our organic truth? Do we have a measure of who we are that we can return to when our minds want to go rogue? Because your mind was designed to go rogue so that it could be programmed against you. And now you're deprogramming your mind out of that and programming it into full alliance and allegiance to your soul and your soul map and to your source encoded sovereignty. So are you able to discern when your mind goes rogue and back to the the false matrix master programming, master slave, massa, should we say, programming, false matrix? All of that was the whole Atlantic slave trade program was a program to further ground in the Atlantean master slave contracts. The myth of who you are. And that goes across, while it was done to target a certain certain nations and certain peoples. It was a grounding of a grander master code, master slave contract, false matrix master slave contract. And there's a reason why those beings were targeted, which I won't go into right now. But there are false matrix master codes that always want to recode themselves in us. And then there are our source master codes. And when our source master codes come in, our source master codes want to rewrite our whole neural pathways, the way our mental and emotional bodies interface. Our source codes want to do that. But as soon as our source codes hit our system, the false matrix master codes start to surface all the more to try to overpower the source codes. And can you recognize the source master code from the false matrix master code? That's kind of what we're in true battle with right now. Not with other people, but really it's our source master codes versus the false matrix master code. And truly, the source master code already is greater, but it's like, will you let your system accept that again as the override? Okay. Did I mention the Emperor is Aries energy and the Nine of Swords is Aquarius energy? It is the 10 to 19 degree mark of Aquarius, the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords as guidance is also where you break your mind out of the mental prisons you find yourself caught in. So the 8, 9, and 10 of Swords have to do oftentimes with like MK Ultra programming. And again, we've all dealt with that. It's just to what degree? It's just to what degree? We've all been put into mental prisons of fear within self, where we can't go into certain places within our own minds because of trauma programming. It's happened to all of us because that's how the false matrix programmed us against ourselves. So the Nine of Swords is also where we dare to go into those places within our own minds, to break into higher learning and information about who we actually are. And we go into places that have been cordoned off within our own minds as forbidden areas. But it's within those forbidden areas that we meet our soul's truth, which is why the Nine of Swords connects us to the Hermit, the number 9 card. Okay. Oh, I think I'm going to wrap up here. Maybe I'll get you some guidance. What deck do I want to go into? I have posted information. I'm doing, the sun was at the top. That's a lovely card. The sun is where we come into solar code, but where we also come into clarity about who we are. Well, about many things, but it's where we come into, where solar code can shine. I'm doing eclipse readings. I think I'm only doing 7 for this eclipse. So if you're interested, I'll put the link in the description box below. Which deck should I use for guidance? If you're interested in getting with me for an eclipse reading, we have the new moon in Aquarius, full solar eclipse occurring, I think I want to say on the 17th of February. And then we have the full moon in Virgo eclipse occurring March 3rd or 4th. So this is going to be the second eclipse that we've had since the nodes went into Pisces and Virgo. And I don't have my phone. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I do know that the last eclipse that occurred in September, it was huge, you know, and I talked about it in the video yesterday because we had those two new moons that bookended. We had the new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees, and then we moved into the eclipse corridor with the full moon in Pisces. And then we had the new moon in Virgo eclipse at 29 degrees, right? So we had two new moons in Virgo. One of them, the closing new moon in Virgo was an eclipse, and the full moon in between those two new moons, a full moon in Pisces, was an eclipse. And I spoke about this in eclipse season. And then if you did the eclipse reading with me at the time, I went into this in your personal chart. And this was a story of how the Virgo Pisces axis has really been dealing with us, with how we have been programmed and coded into the self-sacrifice templates that caused us to reject ourselves and choose the group or choose something outside ourselves for the greater good, for morality, for all of the reasons that all of the ways and the reasons they programmed us to think that what we were doing was honorable, and how that caused us to break our own ability to know self and what we need to thrive, right? That's what Virgo deals with, and broke us out of the ability to follow our own souls and follow our own code, and even to be able to be updated in our own solar codes. We couldn't do that while we were in self-betrayal mode, while we were in martyrdom programming, while we were serving others before first serving the source code in self, so that we could properly be of service, right? So the Virgo Pisces axis, Leo Aquarius, also deals with this self versus how we interface with the collective and with the group. And all of the sister signs deal with this in different ways. But the self-sacrifice templates that adhere to how we're supposed to die to self, that's something they say a lot in Christian circles. You're supposed to die to self and carry your cross, and all of this other crazy programming that's designed to make you believe that self-sacrifice and martyrdom is honorable, it's right, yada yada yada. It's not. It's how you go against your own soul, right? And the age of Pisces was huge for really driving that false message home. And so with the nodes at this part of Ascension, North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo, it's really been helping us to see the intricacies of that story and to clear it out of us in our own individual programming, the ways we've been scripted in accordance with those templates. So that last eclipse, there were a lot of source code overrides that came through Virgo season last year with those two new moons. Source code overrides that had very specifically to do with putting to death the martyrdom coding that was designed to control us and to bind us to these master-slave contracts that were birthed through the Atlantean timelines. That eclipse season was really there to help begin to really shine a light on how we deny ourselves, how we betray ourselves, and how we've been doing it in the most subtle and covert ways that we weren't even able to see. That's what that eclipse was blowing into our faces, so that we could start to change direction, start to program ourselves out of that misprogramming, So that's what the past 6 months have been about. Very much glaring light on the intricacies of our self-betrayal patterns and our martyrdom templates and patterns, and how those things have been used to control us through group dynamics to get us to walk away from self and to trade our own power to be a part of something based upon a false honor code. Now, this eclipse coming up is about the rooting in of new timelines and new networks that help to create the foundations that need to be set for new timelines that are rooted in sovereignty, allegiance to self, allegiance to our personal rhythms and our own code and our purpose first. And then from that place to give to the collective, to give from overflow, to give from stability, and not to give from depletion, thinking that that's what we're supposed to do. It's the honorable thing and all that other bullshit. So we're rewriting these new timelines of service to self, service to the source code within self, in order to serve the source code within others and on the earth. And that is also bringing the earth back to source code and harmonic resonance too. So now this eclipse is helping to clear the path to create those foundations and bring those timelines forward. The new moon in Aquarius with seeding a lot of things that have to do with the foundations and the networks, and the full moon in Virgo with bringing closure and the death to many timelines, grids, cycles, patterns, and behaviors that created or fueled those grids and timeline circulation. The full moon in Virgo, it acts as a death portal. And with this eclipse, it's eclipsing out the world card energies, it's eclipsing out cycles, patterns, things that have been adhering to us across incarnations, many times from the previous golden age. So it's a big clearing portal of that which has tried to overwrite the mastery of our own souls with false master codes, that has gotten us to trade in our I am truth to be a part of the false matrix. Even though we didn't know that's what we were doing, that's what the fuck we were doing. And this is what that Virgo eclipse is about. So, one of the many themes. So if you would like an eclipse reading, I'm doing it differently than the last eclipse. Slightly different. It's going to be a herbal reading, a 4-card reading from either tarot or star codes, astro oracle reading, and we'll go into your chart based upon whether you have prominent placements that are connecting with this eclipse energy, but also in direct correspondence with how the tarot is connecting to your chart, how the tarot is speaking to your chart, or how the astrology cards. So whatever cards are coming out in your reading will be a channeled message, but it will also be what plugs me into your chart to come through with the channeled message in accordance with the card and your chart. Okay, so I have a few more spaces for Tarotstrology full rebirth if you want your full chart channeled by me, your soul map. That's what it is. When I do a Tarotstrology personal reading, it's a map of your soul through your birth chart and why your soul chose to come through here. The stories it shows me, it tells me through you, through the planets, about this incarnation, but also the information that comes through from other incarnations, as well as your contracts here. Okay, so I have a few more. I'm ending that service in April. As I said before, please only reach out to me if you're serious about booking. You can do that through emailing me, solarahspeaks@proton.me. All my other services I will put in the description box and the comment section below. because you can book directly through my Ko-Fi. Soul Recovery, tea time catch up, a 30-minute guidance if you're a return client and you just want to check in. My bespoke decree services, if you need a decree that is co-created by you sharing with me what's going on and I go back and write it, that service is available too, as well as I have a whole archive of decrees. So yeah, all of that information I'll put in the description box below. We have what came out, Evil Queen, you deserve sugar, not salt. This card tends to come out when in some way you're shortchanging yourself, or we're shortchanging ourselves, and we're not seeing clearly. Number two, it's a High Priestess. We're not seeing clearly the underwriting energies of what we are engaging with. So I said that before with the Page of Swords that was coming out, how there were things that wanted to be shown to you about who you actually are in your truth that you might have been discarding, right? And oftentimes when we discard who we are and who our soul is trying to show us we are, whether it's on a magnanimous level or whether it's like an aspect of our shadow, when we ignore that message, then we go through, this is when we go through things with other people and they become a louder mirror for that. Okay. Tower, unplug and relax for a spell. So this is also like Hanged One energy. This is a number 3. So we got 2 and 3 coming out. This is the Empress. The Empress, unplug and relax for a spell. So where are you still moving from a place of lack of true value for self, and you're making decisions that are coming from there as opposed to actually, knowing your worth and who you are? Because in the false matrix, we were taught that our value laid in what we do, a whole bunch of things that have nothing to do with who we are. And the challenge for many of you, and this has been the challenge all through, and a lot of the time it just becomes a different level of the same theme. You're just being taken deeper into self-value recognition, like self-value that's rooted in recognition of who you are. Right? Those movies like where somebody goes into like the fancy designer store, and because they think that they're a nobody or they have no money, they treat them like shit. And then all of a sudden, when they realize that they are this person, or that somebody else knows them, or that they have this much money to spend, their tune changes immediately. And now they're a person that needs to be courted and kowtowed to, exactly. And whatever, kind of like, I think that happened in Pretty Woman, right? When she went back to the store with Richard, and the shop assistants were so different to her. It's kind of like that with yourself. Like, we treat ourselves like we are that person who has nothing to give, or we don't see the value that we have. And oftentimes what happens with that is that when we don't see it, you can believe that other people do. And the danger of that is, a lot of the time when we don't see it in ourselves, other people who see it in us are going to exploit it. And the reason they're going to exploit it is because they're mirroring back to us what we're doing to ourselves. And I'm not saying what they're doing is okay. And I'll tell you how they're mirroring it back to us. They're mirroring it back to us because they're not allowing us to see our own worth. And on some level, a lot of the time when it gets to that point, it's because we're being shown something about ourselves that we don't want to accept. And remember, I said, when our soul has been speaking to us and showing us something about ourselves, whether shadow or whether magnanimous, that we don't want to accept, we're blocking oftentimes with our own ego, both ways. Whether it's shadow or whether it's like magnanimous, we're blocking ourselves with our own ego. When we don't want to see it, when our soul speaks it to us, it's going to come out in how we interface with other people, because that's the next phase to mirror it back to us so we get the message. It's going to come through how we interface with other people, or our experiences. We are holographic beings. Everything's a feedback loop. If you don't learn it internally, your external reality will start to show it to you, which is why to fix the external, we got to fix the internal, because we're holographic. Everything's just a feedback loop. At the bottom of the deck, universe, we're all just stardust. I don't like that. We're all just stardust. For one thing, not everyone is stardust. Okay, maybe. Anyway, that's a whole different argument. But just stardust? Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know what's in stardust? All the resources on the planet come through stardust. They're not all just stardust, but it actually articulates exactly what it is I've been saying about how, we misjudge ourselves by thinking we're too little, or thinking we're too much. Kind of like the Goldilocks story. But what I'm saying is that oftentimes we don't see ourselves clearly because we don't want to see aspects of our shadow, and we don't want to see how great we are either. And anytime we fall into the trap of not being able to see ourselves, we are taking our multidimensional infinite truth, and we are diluting it and minimizing it and shrinking it into something more finite and limited. And that's dangerous, because then we begin to produce finite and limited timelines that will always feel uncomfortable to us, because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we are infinite and multidimensional beings. And so just because we've decided in our minds that we can't begin to fathom that, that doesn't mean that's true. And the timelines we create when we're not able to fathom who we are going to feel uncomfortable, because they're tight timelines that are not a reflection of our truth. Okay. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's been fun. It's been real. If you would like to support the channel, if you'd like to tip me, send a donation, send me a cup of coffee, you can do that through my Ko-Fi. I'll put that information below. Thank you to all of you who have supported me across the years. Thank you to those of you who, even in my downtime, when I haven't been very active anywhere, with good reason, still reached out to me, still donated, still, I was still writing a lot of decrees, still engaged with me in that way, still booked me. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate those of you who are true contributors to my ability to do what it is I came here to do, and to those of you who really value my work, but not only my work, but what goes into my being able to be here. Thank you for those of you who are able to see that and take it seriously, and replenish me so that I'm able to do what it is I do here, because it's not easy. Let's put it, or it hasn't been easy. I'm not continuing to write that timeline, but everything that I share with you guys, I don't pull it out of the ethers. I'm not pulling things out of the ethers for the fun of pulling things out of the ethers. I share things with you that I'm embodying. I've embodied. And I've opened the gate for other people to embody too. So I thank you to those of you who recognize truly who I am on the earth. I really do. And I will see you again next time, whenever that might be. Until then, be well.